Welcome back, everyone. And this episode, we're going to get the shock towers temporarily tacked into place and the motor back into the car. So for those of you who haven't been following along, this is my 1968 Triumph TR6, and I'm turning it into a Restomod by taking all of the electronics and drivetrain from a 2009 BMW 135 and trying to stuff it into this car. If you haven't been following along, there's a link that you can follow, or there's a playlist that I got together that you can catch up to where I am from, all the way from me picking up the car to where we're at today. Take a second just to, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. It helps the channel. I'd really love to get people commenting on this so that I can see what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, what I can do better, as well as what I'm messing up here, because honestly, I'm figuring out most of this as I go along. I have a basic idea of what I'm doing when it comes to the metal work, the grafting, the body work, etc. But I'm no expert. This is just trial and error. I'm hoping for the best at the end of this. So if you know what I'm doing wrong, please let me know. And if I've done it, I will go back and fix it if it's really messed up. So yeah, that's all going to help the channel. Really appreciate it. Also, I've got no sponsors, so I'm sponsoring myself. I have these Hornetic units. It's a little electronic module that allows you to easily connect a second horn into your car. Oh, why do you want a second horn? Well, the average horn, beep, beep, which is great if you're just saying, hey, can you please move, or hi, or something like that. But you know what? At some point, you're done asking. So you might want an air horn or a train horn or some other questionably loud horn in an emergency. Well, with the Hornetic unit, you tap your horn for your regular horn, hold it for more than half a second, and you get both horns going off. So in an emergency, you don't have to think, you do what you do best. And it takes care of the rest for you. So if you can pick one of those units up, there's a link in my bio. It'll really help the channel. It'll help me, pick up some tools that I need, as well as materials, things like that. So really appreciate it. Okay, that's it for that. Let's get on to what we're going to do this episode. Last episode, we got the front end of the car cut off and the BMW shock towers mounted into place so that the geometry works for what BMW designed. I'm not going to re-engineer that. So they are just held in place right now with vice grips and clamps and stuff, and we need to actually temporarily install the 2" by 2" pipe that I've got to lift them up into the higher position that we found we could get away with. I also, last time, installed the brake booster along with the steering column and shaft using the original BMW firewall, or a piece of it, so that I keep the relationship between the booster and the steering column the same. Now, if you also remember, we mocked up the windshield, and we got the steering wheel and into place along with the gauge cluster, just mocked up so that is there enough room? That, was a question I needed to answer. Well, this episode, we really need to get the engine back into the engine bay so that we can take the heater unit and make sure that height-wise it's going to clear the transmission tunnel. If you remember from an earlier episode, if you haven't watched there, you can go back and take a look. I cut the transmission tunnel out of the BMW and put it in place here. Now, I discovered that if I want to use these seats, I don't have enough width between the seats for the original tunnel, but I do have plenty of room for the tunnel in the footwell. So we'll be eventually cutting that down. But what that does is it allows us to maintain some of the mounting for our gear shift, our brake handle, as well as the heater unit to the transmission tunnel, which gives us a nice secure setup. But first, the motor, these have to be temporarily put in place, or at least welded into place, and then the motor's got to go back into the car. So let's get started with getting the shock towers into place. Okay, after dropping my camera and breaking my power cable, got a new cable and forgot to turn the damn camera on before I tacked these 2x2s in place. So as you can see, I've added this new piece in here and just put a couple tacks on the inside, one tack on the outside. That'll be sufficient to hold that in place. I will now leave my camera on, and I will position this in the right position relative to the inside face of this. And that is 10 inches to this front edge here. So let's get that lined up so that both of them are in the same position, and we will clamp them in place and just throw, a couple tacks onto here, maybe one at the back here, just to hold it, or at the back here, just to hold these in place so that I don't need to worry about removing this cross brace when I put the motor in. Now, this cross brace is high enough to clear the motor, but I don't think that I'll be able to tuck the motor in underneath it with it in place. So let's get these positioned, tacked, and then get ready to put the motor in. Okay, so gave a few tacks onto that and onto that. That pretty much, it locks it in place well enough for now. I will be obviously reinstalling this crossbar, double checking my measurements before I lock these in place permanently. I literally are tacking them in place so I can get rid of that top bar, put the motor in, and also get this will allow me to get the suspension up and into place so that I can just double check the geometry. So let's get that top bar off, and let's get these shocks or coilovers or struts actually bolted up into the strut tower. Well, those are in place now. I'm just using a set of jacks to hold them up so that these don't tilt out. Now I have a measurement from the center of the nut to the center of the nut. I'll have to just double check that. And what that will allow me to do is I'll be able to look at the distance between the two, as well as where they sit, and that way I've got them both at the same sort of angle. And what I can do is I can check my angle on this face. So when these two angles are exactly the same, I know that they're both parallel or in line with each other and centered over the car and at the right distance. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a set of solid jacks underneath this so that I can remove my my lifts. That way I'm not tripping over them. And that will allow me to get the motor back into place. Okay, so you saw that there, that with the transmission on the motor lifting from the lifting hook, I really don't like the angle at which the engine is coming up. I mean, it's putting a lot of stress on this, on this hook in this direction. Just not impressed with that. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to lift the back of this along with the front of it. So I'm going to have to get a chain or something onto this in such a way that my lift is closer to the center of the engine, not at the front. So let's see what we can do there. Okay, so after a whole bunch of research, let's see. So this is a mounting point, but there's another one down here, right? And you're supposed to remove the whole intake and then have a chain coming up, another chain coming up, and then the metal bar that goes across, and then that's how you lift the engine, and I would assume with the transmission as well. So I got two choices. I don't have that bar. I can make something. I can jerry-rig something up, and then I've got to take the intake manifold off and all the shit that all the stuff that entails. Or I can do what I was doing before, which is have the subframe mounted to the engine and basically lift the subframe with the engine into place. And I'll just remove this front bar, which is really only there for mounting the vehicle on the rotisserie. And I can always add that back in. I can always weld it back into place. So I'm thinking that that's probably what I'm going to have to do, just because I don't have that lifting bar, and I really don't want to take any more of the engine apart. Start busting seals on an intake manifold, and then pieces are here and there, and before you know it, right, I'm down to a bare block, and I'm not getting this thing back together again. This was running when I took it out of the BMW. I know that. I tested it. So I have removed as little as possible so that I know when I plug back everything in and bleed all the lines, it should run, If I start yanking the intake manifold off, and then, I got to do an intake gasket, and I got to do this and that and the other thing. And it's like, anyway, that's all maintenance that'll come later for sure, but I don't want to do it right now. I got enough to do here. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to grind this front support bar off. I'm going to use the engine hoist to drop the subframe down. I'll lift the engine up and mount the subframe back onto it, and then I will lift the whole thing as a package and just slide it straight in the front, lift it up so that I can bolt it to the chassis, get the support underneath it as I had before, and then bolt in the transmission. So yeah, it's a lot more work, but that's the way she goes. Oh yeah, so an hour and a half later, and the motor is in the motor. So that's actually looking pretty good. And as you can see, I connected up the steering arm here, and loads of room. Like, I mean, gobs of room there. So I'm really pleased about that. Lots of room on this side, as would be expected. I think that this is tilted a little in this way, this particular shock, and this one is out. Just looking at the gap between this corner and this line and this one here. So, but again, I knew that was going to happen. It's only temporarily tacked into place while I fit the motor down. So now, now that that's done, we can actually look at the heating system and the transmission. So if you haven't seen the earlier episodes, this transmission is actually smaller than the original Triumph transmission. It actually takes up, you can see the bell housing is quite a bit smaller. So I actually have some room on this side here where I can reshape this transmission tunnel and give myself a little bit of extra room for my feet. Now, I do have to cut a little bit here just for clearance, but very little. But what I want to do is I want to actually extend the firewall tighter up against the transmission. I only need about 10 millimeters of clearance. There's not going to be a lot of movement. And on this side, I mean, there's gobs of space there, like loads and loads. So what I'm going to do is I am definitely going to reshape that and give the have more space in the passenger footwell, and also because it means that I am going to be able to hide more stuff under the dashboard, in that kick space. So even if I kept the original Triumph footwell size for the passenger, I'm going to gain some extra space for some electronics and for some of the BMW stuff that's going in. Now, my only concern here was in the height of this transmission and being able to actually get the heating unit in. So that's probably going to be the next thing that we tackle, is just seeing if the heating unit will go back into place with the transmission there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've got plenty of room there for the transmission, which is just fabulous. I'm really happy about that. So as you can see, the heating unit does tuck into the footwell pretty deep, but I've actually even got room, if I wanted to cut this up and cut this up and raise it if I wanted to. Let me just zoom out here. But the likelihood is I won't, because I want to keep as much space above the heating unit as I possibly can. Because if you remember from one of the other episodes, I cut down the vents for the defroster, and what I would like to try and do is duct those above, even if it's like, just a half-inch duct, flat duct, and get some air blowing onto the windscreen. Again, this is a convertible, right? I'm probably not even going to put a roof on this thing. If anything, I'm gonna do some kind of a tonneau just at the back, like a speed tonneau or something like this. Maybe, I don't know. But this thing will probably never see a roof. It'll never see rain. It'll never see the type of moisture that I'll need to defrost the windshield. So there we have it. Things are starting to come together. I think what I might start to do is think about how I'm going to move forward here. Well, there you have it. That is all the time I've got for this episode. Really glad that we got the motor and transmission into place, the suspension up into place in the correct geometry, the correct position. Everything is just basically dry fit, just to make sure that I've got some space there and see how we're going to move forward. But thank you so much for sticking around. I'm really having a great time with this. Remember to subscribe, like, and notification, or is it notification, subscribe? Anyway, it's whatever order, the bell. Please, comment, let me know what I'm doing wrong. Really appreciate it. And if you want to support the channel, there's a link in my bio. Pick up a Hornetic unit, and I really appreciate it. See you next episode.